$5 is a great spot for indie games during the Steam sale since you have $20 games at 75% discount or $25 games at 80% off with some absolute steals beginning with Boomerang X, a fast-paced first-person arena shooter in which you wield a mystical boomerang to slice through swarms of monstrous creatures while you propel yourself through the air using momentum and skill. You need to master the X-shaped boomerang using the throw, but also the ability to teleport to it to zip around the arena, enabling fluid flight-like traversal and combat. You can also activate slow motion to give you split-second control during frantic encounters with stylish tricks, unlocking temporary boomerang enhancements for extra offensive power. The arenas do end after a certain number of waves, so while frantic like Devil Daggers, it is not structured in the same way. But if you love first-person shooters, do yourself a favor and get this, with the sad news being that this developer has shut down, but hopefully the game will continue to sell for years to come. One of the best games of 2021 is Death's Door, an isometric action-adventure game with Souls-inspired combat, having one of the best feeling combat systems, and is a no-brainer at this price. In this world, crows are the Grim Reapers, tasked with collecting souls, but your assigned soul is stolen from right out under your nose, and you have to pursue the thief through surreal realms in the afterlife and beyond to a realm untouched by death. You are exploring maze-like looping environments in a manner similar to Tunic, filled with puzzles, enemies, and hidden shortcuts. Core gameplay systems combine precise melee and ranged combat using both your sword and bow. While there is no stamina meter, it would do you good to be a little bit more cautious and to observe enemies first, dodging and weaving as required, where timing and positioning are critical, especially during mini-boss and boss fights. There is an upgrade system for health and magic, along with a cast of interesting and memorable bosses and characters, where it's kind of insane how this developer is 2 for 2 in making absolute bangers between this and Titan Souls, so I wonder what's next for them. Dreamscaper is an action roguelite dungeon crawler whose most direct comparison would be Hades, but with a sweet 3D art style as well as locations inspired by modern cities as well as fantasy landscapes. Our heroine is literally battling surreal nightmares to heal her emotional wounds, as you switch between the real world, which is where the meta progression systems lie, and the dream world filled with terrifying enemies. The nightmare realms represent her trauma, like fear, isolation, or loss, with a mood and vibe to match, but at its core, the fluid combat which mixes melee, ranged weapons, and lucid powers such as ice blasts or other magic equivalent attacks is the highlight. You will have access to a variety of weapons as well, which are unique, along with a meta progression system in the hub area for roguelite style permanent progression between runs, being a hidden gem worth picking up. Speaking of hidden gems, Pyre is a great 3D platformer, if a little excessively gory and gross for no good reason in my opinion, in which you play as Nate, the demon of bad taste, collecting vile ingredients to bake Satan's birthday pie across grotesque cartoonish realms. Set in a foul but colourful underworld full of sewage plants, meat factories, and twisted holiday zones, you navigate large open levels with the help of Nugget, your chained cherub companion, who doubles as a grappling hook, throwable weapon, and mobility enhancer. The platforming is fast-paced and feels good as you use double jumps, dashes, wall runs, and mid-air swings to reach collectibles and find hidden paths. There is combat, but it feels secondary, functional but nothing too crazy, with the focus definitely being on locomotion. There is progression in the form of ability unlocks and upgrades, as well as optional challenges, so while the tone isn't exactly for me, there's something to the core gameplay of this which makes it fantastic, with the 80% discount certainly helping its case. With the success of Shovel Knight, Yacht Club Games took an approach of co-developing other games in the series which are not their core side-scrolling platformer action, partnering with developers to make interesting spin-offs such as Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon. This is an action puzzle title where you control Shovel Knight and other unlockable heroes, taking on bite-sized grid arenas, shoveling your way through waves of enemies and clearing chests before the board fills and ends the run. you move or attack to match enemies, triggering combos that eliminate groups of them, reducing the number of incoming blocks while surviving by collecting health potions amid escalating pressure. As with most action puzzle games, think Puzzle Fighter or the like, the way the tiles move is something interesting to wrap your head around and is fun. Similarly, another storied franchise has taken to spinning up games in all sorts of genres, with the steam-powered robots building cities and mining here in SteamWorld Build. If you grew up with the Sierra or Impressions city builders like Pharaoh, Cleopatra or Emperor Rise of the Middle Kingdom, you will be right at home here as you construct houses, set up production chains, build amenities and distribute goods to said houses, which causes them to be upgraded. However, there is a narrative involving a perhaps not so innocent destroyed robot which wants you to excavate ancient technology underground. The world is split into the overworld city and the underground mines, with the latter requiring you to build mine shafts and support columns lest there be a cave-in, along with tower defense elements as you fend off waves of enemies. The city on top is thus in service of the mining, providing an interesting dichotomy where the developers have released a bunch of free updates and is definitely worth it at 80% discount. If you ever wondered what a tactile game feels like, then give Potion Craft Alchemist Simulator a go, where you run a medieval potion shop, crafting custom elixirs to serve townsfolk and to build your reputation. You explore ingredient-rich wilderness areas to collect roots, berries and minerals, then grind, mix, heat and pour them into a cauldron, with the actions corresponding to your inputs, and feels good, like some sort of meditative experience. I love the hand-drawn art as well, with an interesting haggling system with customers as you adjust price and even influence the greater world by choosing which potion to give. There is an interesting alchemy map system for exploration, a garden which allows you to grow your own ingredients, as well as customization of the shop itself, being a freeform sandbox kind of experience which allows you to roleplay as the merchant you want to be, having an insane 32,000 Steam reviews as of recording and is very popular. Another modern remake worth a play is Wonder Boy The Dragon's Trap, a remake of a title from 1989, which was effectively a Metroidvania before that term was coined. You play as a cursed hero who has been transformed into Lizard Man, having to travel the land to defeat various bosses in order to restore your original form. However, along the way, you will gain new animal forms, each with unique abilities, which then serves as your Metroidvania-style progression, allowing you to get to new areas. I did not play the original, but reviews say that it is quite a faithful remake, not 100% beat for beat, but it comes close, and where it differs, it shines, especially the absolutely gorgeous hand-drawn art, along with some quality of life improvements like instant weapon switching. You collect treasure from chests and foes, spending gold in towns to upgrade gear and restore health, and for the most part, the game does leave you alone to explore rather than shoving a big bright arrow in your face telling you where to go next. With additional features like being able to switch to classic graphics, as well as the addition of a Wonder Girl playable character, and it's a steal at 75% discount. Speaking of classic titles, Xenonauts is a turn-based strategy game in which you lead a secret international defense force against an alien invasion, dispatching planes to intercept UFOs, then sending your squad to investigate crash sites in boots-on-the-ground turn-based action. Sound familiar? Yes, indeed. What is old is new again here, since this is very XCOM-like, but more XCOM UFO Defense from 1994 instead of the modern 2012 remake from Firaxis. There is a meta strategy layer here as you manage bases all over the world, managing your fleet of planes and selecting which UFO to intercept, with a limited amount of funds to go towards combating this alien threat. The turn-based tactics during missions are intense, with a large variety of about 50 types of enemies, as well as all sorts of weapons from conventional to alien, as well as perma-death of your soldiers. You can progress up the research tree with variety in combat and tactics, such as time of day affecting the missions that you go on, with no scripted missions and some degree of emergent simulation, ensuring that no two playthroughs are the same, where there is a sequel currently in early access, but I would certainly recommend the original first. Do not judge Chronicon by its cover, since despite the relatively simple visual style, this loot-driven action RPG is insanely deep, having systems upon systems to rival the best in this genre. It is framed as delving into the memories of fallen heroes through a magical device known as the Chronicon to relive their epic lives, as you explore a fantasy realm shaped by ancient conflicts. It has a 5-act structure with a massive, endlessly replayable endgame where you slaughter enemies by the hundreds and get powerful gear and materials to be used in the crafting system. All the fantasy elements are present, including gems, runes and enchantments, along with loot of varying rarities and hundreds of random affixes. Each character has not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 skill trees with over 170 skills each, being an insane amount of replayability even if you just play with a single character, even more so if you decide to try out all 4, where co-op support with friends just adds to the fun. A very hectic pixel art action roguelite is Wizard of Legend, the spell-slinging title that feels extremely fast in the action, as you effortlessly combo all kinds of elemental spells together to defeat enemies as you take on the wizard trials. The spells or arcana are grouped into elements from fire, ice, lightning and so on, with multiple options for the basic attack, as well as powerful variants which you can use to create dynamic combos. Randomized rooms, shops and challenge encounters add variety, with game-changing relics mid-run which can drastically alter your build, also having meta progression systems to keep you hooked for just one more run. The sequel just released out of early access but is by a different developer and objectively isn't as good, with the plus point being that the older game is more steeply discounted as well at 70% off, so get it if you don't own it. Developer Ace Team is one of the most interesting developers out there, being from Chile and having made some very weird, very out there games like Rock of Ages, where we are looking at Clash Artifacts of Chaos here, a third-person action-adventure brawler in which you play as a fighter journeying to the edge of the land. The creature designs in this game are something else, so if you thought that fantasy creatures are all kind of boring, this might give you a fresh new perspective, with the stance-based melee combat being the most interesting part. You have to choose from different fighting styles, and to use dodge cancels, directional attacks, animation resets, and even your guard to get the advantage, requiring a bit of time to wrap your head around, but can be satisfying when you nail it. In theory, this has some association to their previous title Xenoclash and Xenoclash 2, interesting games in their own right, with all three just being weird but interesting. So if you were ever on the fence, 85% discount is a pretty great incentive. One of the best modern tactics titles is also at a steep discount in Fell Seal Arbiter's Mark, where you command a squad of Arbiters to enforce order and keep the peace across a war-torn realm while unraveling a conspiracy that threatens the land. The setting has fantasy influence but also medieval and steampunk, with of course there being a central conspiracy to unravel which involves corruption within your own order. There's deep character customization, choosing from over 30 classes from Knight to Mage to more exotic ones like Fellblade or Plague Doctor, using active skills, passives, buffs, counters and ability synergies to take out your enemies. Terrain and positioning, including elevation, matter in combat, with an epic story as well, drawing inspiration from both versions of Final Fantasy Tactics as well as Tactics Ogre, where, in a rare move, the Missions and Monsters DLC is also at 85% discount, which is a worthy addition if you love this game. Salt and Sanctuary is one of the all-time great indie games, perhaps the best 2D Souls-like title, in which you take on the role of a shipwrecked warrior battling grotesque monsters across a cursed island to uncover its secrets and escape. The dark fantasy hand-drawn world is inspired by gothic horror as you explore interconnected zones filled with traps, platforming challenges, and hidden lore while engaging in methodical combat that emphasizes timing, stamina management, and precision. Defeated enemies drop salt, which you can use to level up, but you do lose it upon death and must recover it via a corpse run mechanic, but die again before picking it up and it is lost forever. Combat is intense, with the removal of a dimension adding to the challenge, with there being a surprising amount of customization and variety based on the character class chosen and even which god you worship, with this also having a sequel, but the original is more highly recommended, so if you get this, say hi to the Queen of Smiles for me. I just talked about Blazing Chrome in my best run and gun indie games video, so of course I'm a fan, being most similar to Contra Hardcore on the Sega Genesis, but with developer Joy Masher's signature pixel art touch. Set in a post-apocalyptic future where machines have nearly eradicated all human life, you play as the Resistance fighting back, mixing classic run-and-gun action with vehicle sections which are not only side-scrolling but behind the back as well. You can carry a selection of weapons, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, dodging projectiles and jumping to avoid enemy attacks as required, but do be warned that this is old school tough, and if you play on the default difficulty mode, you might find yourself running out of credits, facing a game over screen and having to restart from level 1. An underrated title is Full Metal Furies, a cooperative beat-em-up from the developer of Rogue Legacy, which seems like a slam dunk in concept, especially with the gorgeous pixel art. But there's one very interesting quirk about this game. For the most part, you're battling enemies with brutal combos to save a world torn apart by ancient titans, where certain enemies are color-coded, which must be dealt with by the matching character. So here's the first part. In single player, you're forced to pick two characters which you must swap between, which I suppose is better than forcing co-op only, but it is still a strange choice, which of course has to do with this color switching system. There are RPG progression mechanics to unlock new abilities, which is cool, but then curiously, this is more of a puzzle game as you look for environmental clues and attempt to solve these obscure puzzles, perhaps being too clever for its own good, resulting in expectations not meeting reality, but if you do love puzzles, this is a surprising entry that will certainly be worth your time. Next to the heavyweight of Stardew Valley in the farming sim genre quietly stands Graveyard Keeper, one that looks similar in concept, only you're not some burned out office worker seeking a cozy farm life, but rather are a morally grey medieval peasant in charge of a graveyard in a world where meat is banned. So of course you know what that leads to. The core of the game lies in accepting, processing, and burying bodies, but you can do more interesting things like carving out chunks of meat to sell to the local tavern, or to start farming and crafting, or even exploring the dungeons beneath the church. There's a village with NPCs, some cultish holy types that love to burn people at the stake, quests to complete, fish to catch, and more, being one of the most interesting life sim titles, which is massively popular, so if you've not played this, $4 is an excellent price for a 40 to 50 hour experience. The most underrated supergiant game, Pyre, happens to be one of my favourites, essentially a mystical 3v3 basketball game with visual novel storytelling presentation, probably being unlike anything you have ever played, which is why it's worth a look. You play as a reader banished for the crime of literacy to a land known as the Downside, where criminals of all sorts have been cast into and none have escaped. However, it just so happens that the stars literally align, which causes the rights to occur, an ancient competition that is akin to basketball, where through this you can find your salvation. Along the way, you pick up a ragtag band of exiles, each with their own personalities, stories, and reasons as to why they want out, with the sports action being very fun, with a variety of tactics, playable characters, and strategies, including essentially shooting a jump shot or dunking the ball, causing damage to enemy pyres, but you can also directly target opponents to temporarily take them out of the match. There's plenty of progression systems through gear, trinkets and upgrades, having a branching narrative where finding out the relationships between your party members and the other NPCs is especially fascinating, not to mention Supergiant's signature gorgeous art and music, and is highly recommended by me. A more conventional all-action title is Ruiner, a twin-stick shooter in which you control a masked vigilante navigating brutal arena-style levels to dismantle a corrupt system and to rescue his kidnapped brother. Set in a dystopian metropolis of Rengok in 2091, you fight through neon-lit factories, streets and corporate strongholds while confronting waves of cyber-enhanced enemies under the guiding voice of a mysterious hacker. The twin-stick action mixes melee combat, firearms, and tactical gadgets and abilities such as time-slowing dashes and kinetic shields, looking, sounding, and feeling absolutely brutal as you slaughter your enemies, having some Hotline Miami vibes, and is just all action all the time while oozing style, with 80% discounts being a fantastic deal as well. Supraland is a first-person Metroidvania puzzle adventure game set in a literal sandbox where you play as a miniature character in a world where everyday objects are regular-sized, which gives it a wonderful, almost childlike sense of whimsy to the entire setup of the game. You are navigating interconnected zones themed around deserts, caves, castles, and more, while searching for artifacts and uncovering secrets. You unlock objects and abilities that enable you to get to new areas, including the Force Cube and a tether gun, which can conveniently also be used in combat, where exploration and discovery in this game is simply a joy, set to blend Portal, Zelda, and Metroid, and is excellent. We did get the recent 1.0 release of Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon, a first-person, almost Skyrim-like open-world RPG, but before that, the developer made Tainted Grail Conquest, being set in the same dark fantasy Arthurian legend setting, which is actually based on a board game, where this is a deck-building roguelike RPG instead. Choose from 9 playable characters and battle through cursed fog lands in search of salvation and truth. A corrupting mist known as the Weirdness shifts the landscapes and hides eldritch horrors, so venture down procedurally generated paths, with each step revealing random encounters, elite enemies, merchants, and random events which influence your run. The card-based deck-building combat is great, with enemy intentions presented to you so that you can strategize, with a nice variety of playable classes and a bunch of unlocks between each run, so get this if you want something darker and more intense. I still don't have a great way of describing which genre Loop Hero is in, so if you do, let me know, where I'm settling on roguelite strategy for now, in which a lich has destroyed the world and you play as heroes who have to fight back to end the loop. Your hero automatically takes laps in the loop, and you're placing tiles down to fuel this, actually spawning monsters for the hero to fight to get stronger, but not to introduce dangerous enemies too quickly. There's a loot and crafting element, as you get rare resources for each run used to upgrade your home base as you grind loop after loop, being one part semi-idle game, one part strategy, one part RPG, where the map resets after every attempt but isn't exactly a roguelite either, but basically this is awesome, so get it. Now here's a title which you might not have seen before, since Hand of Doom is a first-person dungeon crawler RPG that looks very old school, think Might and Magic or something, in which you play as an apprentice wizard under a blood-bound oath to track down powerful Doom Lords across mystical planes, explore realms that range from ice and fire to nature domains, moving forward upon the bidding of a Dark Master, with the choice to either slay or befriend each Doom Lord you encounter. You can cast powerful spells to defeat enemies, learning syllables and then reciting them in sequence to cast, which is weird in itself. Add on full motion video or FMV and a throwback art style, and you indeed see something quite weird and out there, which again is why the Steam sale is a great time to check these out if you're intrigued. I used to play the browser RPG Kingdom of Loathing many years ago and quite enjoyed it, so I was curious when they announced that they were making games for PC and consoles, and was pleasantly surprised with how West of Loathing turned out. This is essentially a single-player turn-based RPG like how their browser game was, but injected with a ton of humor, with the writing and absurd situations that the characters get in being the main draw. No warrior, mage, rogue, or even cowboy character class here, but rather choose from snake oiler, bean slinger, or cow puncher as you go on this epic western adventure. Sure, there are stats, loot, equipment, and more, but the vibe and absurdity of this game is sure to put a smile on your face, so if you're in need of a laugh, here's one to get. One of the best titles which people have mistaken for a roguelite is Children of Morta, where yes, there are procedurally generated dungeons, but you can warp out at any time with no penalty, having persistent progression for your characters as well, so it resembles something more like Diablo or Path of Exile. The gimmick is that the Bergson family is sworn to protect the world from an imminent and growing corruption, and you're able to unlock and play as all the family members, from father to daughter to grandmother and more, each of which have unique playstyles and progression systems. Between dungeon runs, you progress the narrative, but the core action just feels great and will be for fans of the genre. Watch this video for more of the best indie games.